Hunt League community. I was invited to be a part of a hunt that you need to know about. Last Wednesday, I got a text from Steve Osterholzer, big time hunter and outdoorsman, retired lieutenant colonel who served in the U.S. Army for over 26 years. He said he was leading a group of young men on a pronghorn hunt where they had access to over 80,000 acres of land, and one of their guides had to drop out. Could I fill in? Now, I met Steve a few years ago and I knew then that I wanted to someday be a part of what he was doing, but the timing has never really worked out for me until now. So this video is more than just a hunt recap. It's a call to adventure, to be a part of something bigger than yourself, something that just may echo for eternity. In a world that often seems to question what it truly means to be a man, there's a ministry that is taking young men back to the wild, to the mountains, the rivers, and the rugged, untamed places where adventure awaits. That ministry is Of Mountains and Men. Young men are in crisis. There are loud voices in our culture condemning masculinity, calling young men fascists, misogynists, abusers, placing blame on them based on the transgressions of others. I don't believe in toxic masculinity, but there are toxic behaviors and toxic men. Man was made in the image of God. So how can we help young men find their identity and reflect God to the world around them? John Eldredge writes in his book, The Way of the Wild Heart, "This we must understand. Masculinity is bestowed. A boy learns who he is and what he's made of from a man or a company of men. This can't be learned in any other way. It can't be learned from other boys, and it can't be learned from the world of women." Of Mountains and Men is a faith-based ministry that believes manhood is best forged in the wild. It's in these untamed places that young men, surrounded by a tribe of older men, learn lessons that can't be taught in a classroom. Lessons about strength, courage, and what it means to be dangerous, but to use their strength in the service and protection of others. Through wilderness adventure trips, Of Mountains and Men lead groups of young men on journeys, teaching them new skills, testing their endurance, and instilling confidence in them as protectors, providers, and men of noble character. At the heart of these trips are the campfire talks. Around the fire, there are old men willing to dive deep. It's here that the men reflect on what it means to be a man, the strength that we have been given, the wounds that we carry, and how to live fully alive. On this particular trip, I had the honor of guiding Dylan, a young man on his first pronghorn hunt. Like every adventure, it was full of ups and downs. We had our share of failed stalks, and we had plenty of opportunities to get discouraged. But in the end, Dylan's perseverance and patience paved the way for him to harvest his first pronghorn. That moment wasn't just about the hunt, it was about growth. For Dylan, it was about becoming a man who faces challenges head on, who doesn't give up when things get hard. It was a step forward in his journey of becoming a provider. And that's what Mountains of Men is all about. Helping young men step into their calling as men of God. Through every adventure, whether it's a pronghorn hunt in the wide open plains or it's fishing in the peaceful boundary waters, the goal is always the same: to build men of integrity and faith that understand where their strength comes from. Here's what's incredible. Of Mountains and Men covers the cost for these adventures, the tags, the lodging, the food, so that no one is left behind. Their adventure trips include hunts for pronghorn, deer, elk, and even Florida gators, along with horseback riding, canoeing, and fly fishing. There is something for every young man willing to answer the call. Of Mountains and Men is more than a ministry. It's a movement that believes real adventure is found in both the wild and in the heart of man. And that's where they will continue to take young men. Places where they can discover who God created them to be. What Steve and the team at Of Mountains and Men are doing is absolutely incredible. I'm so glad I was able to be a part of this trip, and I can't wait to do something with them again in the future. At the end of the weekend, Steve brought us together kind of military style, and he debriefed with the guides, asking about our experiences and what they could have done better. A few ideas were thrown out, but it was pretty tough to be too critical when all 5 of the young men tagged out on the very first day of this trip. After that, we asked Steve about some of his biggest needs, and he shared with us how sometimes it's actually difficult to fill these trips with young men, as they don't really do any marketing and it's really just been word of mouth. So sometimes they're looking for guides, mentors, camp cooks, people to come along and help these experiences come together and work for these young men. Then, of course, there's some practical needs like camp cots and heaters, packs, and equipment that the young men need. Then you press a little harder on Steve, and what's really in his heart, you realize that it isn't about just meeting the needs for a specific trip. He's burdened by what he sees with young men, the attacks that they face, the lies that they are being told, the lack of fathers and godly men in their lives. He wants to see of Mountains and Men reaching young men with these adventure trips around the U.S. and across the world. Now, there's a story in the Bible where the masses are hungry and Jesus tells his disciples to go and feed them. They don't know how, and all they have access to is a young boy with 5 small loaves and 2 fish. You may already know the rest of this story, but Jesus took what they had in hand and he multiplied it so that everybody had what they needed, and there was some even left over. I know it may seem like you and I can't make a dent, but my question to you is, what do you have in hand? Do you know a young man that needs a trip like this? Do you know a landowner or an outfitter that would want to be a part of something like this? For me, I had time, a camera, some hunting experience, and a desire to invest in a young man. And now I hope to see what I put in multiplied. So please save this video, share it with others, check out ofmountainsandmen.org. Sign up for one of their adventure trips or sign a young person up and experience this for yourself. The world needs strong, capable men whose hearts are fully alive. Let's help build them together.